Hey, Laura J. and Michael Seegers here for episode 10 of the Michael and Laura Show, where today Michael will be guiding us through the lessons of the cosmic clock. An intro, because there is a great, vast amount of information on the subject. Michael, where are we starting?
Well, we're going to look at the book cover that this comes from, Predict Your Future, Understand the Cycles of the Cosmic Clock. It's an extraordinary book. We actually have this book as a PDF, the complete text, and it's on our MeWe site in the files in the folder called Cosmic Clock, so anybody can download it. This book was created from a teaching that was delivered by Mother Mary at Mount Shasta in 1975. And it is an extraordinary science we're going to go into today, just scratching the surface, because I would suggest there's going to be at least 3 distinct layers. And each layer probably will require a year in between before we can peel away the next layer. We're going to talk today about your cycles of your personal karma and relate this to the electronic belt, because that's where we left off. But the cosmic clock goes much deeper, and it goes into your psychology and mastering your psychology, and it goes into your initiations on the path of ascension. And none of that is beginner's level material. Even this we find for most people a bit challenging, because there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of new terminology, a lot of concepts. So we'll start with the solar hierarchies. And you see them all named here, beginning at the 12 o'clock line, the hierarchy of Capricorn. And as you go clockwise around the wheel, you see what you would normally relate to as the signs of the zodiac. And anybody who knows anything about astrology would think that they're looking at the signs of the zodiac. In fact, these are the names of the solar hierarchies. And each hierarchy contains 144,000 cosmic beings who are involved in the energy at that point on the clock. As the divine director tells us, everything begins in Capricorn. And you move around the clock clockwise, so it's the reverse of the direction you would go if you were looking at the signs of the zodiac in astrology. And there's an interesting way that I've developed to understand this. And what I suggest is, first of all, in relation to the electron belt, we would be standing at the center point of the circle. We would be looking forward at Capricorn, 12 o'clock line directly in front of us, 3 o'clock line Aries to our right, 6 o'clock Cancer directly behind us. But in astrology, we move through the zodiac in a counterclockwise fashion. And what I'm going to suggest is, if you imagine yourself now lying down on your back, and you're in the center of the cosmic clock, so your head is at Capricorn, and on the piece of glass that is above you, you're lying down with a sheet of glass over top of you, and standing on the sheet of glass, picture Saint Germain. He's standing at the center point looking down at you. For him, Aquarius, Pisces, and Aries are to his right, but you're lying down looking up at him. And Aquarius, Pisces, and Aries are to your left. And if you can hold that visualization for a moment and understand, as above, so below, that the material universe is a reflection of the spiritual world, but as a reflection, it is reversed. And that's why the cosmic clock appears to be the opposite of the zodiac. Now, that's just answering a question that comes up later. It's not anything you need to really know in terms of where we're going with charting the cycles. But the question always comes up in astrology. You start at Aries and you go counterclockwise through the circle. Why is that? Now you know why. Now we're going to look at the masters who sit on the cosmic clock. We're now looking at the masters on the 12 lines of the clock. We see at the 12 o'clock line, beloved great divine director on the 7 archangels. The divine director holds the divine pattern, the divine blueprint, and the divine plan for every soul on planet Earth. That's why he's at 12 o'clock, because everything begins in Capricorn. 1 o'clock line, we see beloved Saint Germain and the angelic hosts of light. 2 o'clock line, beloved Jesus, great hosts of Son of Masters, and so forth around the clock. So there is a solar hierarchy, and we're telling you who are the masters and the members of that hierarchy on each line of the clock. Then we have the qualities of the energy on the clock. Now these, obviously you're not going to memorize all these in the beginning, but later on it'll be necessary. You'll need to become very familiar with this. God power is the quality of the energy expressed at the 12 o'clock line. God love is at 1 o'clock, God mastery at 2, God control at 3, God obedience at 4, God wisdom at 5, God harmony at 6, God gratitude at 7, God justice at 8, God reality at 9, God vision at 10, God victory at 11. You will also notice that the clock, if we divide this into quadrants, we have the blue, pink, and yellow repeating in each quadrant. The first quadrant is the fire quadrant. It's the etheric body. The air quadrant, the mental body. The water quadrant, the emotional body. The earth quadrant, the physical body. And so the threefold flame expressing in the element of fire. The blue plume expresses the quality of God power. The pink plume expresses the quality of God love, and the yellow plume expresses the quality of God mastery. Moving into the air element, the blue plume is expressing the quality of God control. The pink expresses God obedience, and the yellow expresses God wisdom. In the water quadrant, the blue flame expresses as God harmony. The pink flame expresses as God gratitude. The yellow flame expresses as God justice. And in the physical quadrant, the blue flame expresses God reality. The pink expresses as God vision, and the yellow expresses as God victory. So you have the 12-fold expression of the threefold flame in the 4 quadrants of matter: fire, air, water, and earth. The 4 lower bodies that comprise our physical form are 4 interpenetrating force fields that are symbolically described as fire, air, water, and earth. And so people in astrology will be familiar with that concept. They'll say Leo is a fire element, Aries and Sagittarius are fire elements. And so the terminology is a little bit familiar, but for the most part, people don't understand that these elements combined together, all 4 interpenetrating force fields, make up the physical plane. And the threefold flame expressing through each element expresses as a particular quality that we see here. Now, each of those qualities may be perverted. Starting with the 12 o'clock line, we see what happens when the expression of God power is misqualified through error. It comes forth as criticism, condemnation, and judgment, and all black magic. When the, and that's the blue flame. And when the pink flame of love is misqualified through error, it expresses hatred, malice, dislike, and all witchcraft. And when the yellow flame expresses through error as doubt, Rather than wisdom, it expresses a doubt, fear, human questioning, and records of death. And these comprise what are known as malicious animal magnetism. Moving into the air element, ignorant animal magnetism, we see conceit, deceit, arrogance, and ego, disobedience, stubbornness, defiance of the law, envy, jealousy, and ignorance of the law. Coming into the emotional body, we have sympathetic animal magnetism, expressing as indecision, self-pity, self-justification, ingratitude, thoughtlessness, and spiritual blindness, injustice, frustration, and anxiety. And coming into the physical quadrant, delicious animal magnetism, the expressions of dishonesty, intrigue, and treachery, selfishness, self-love, and idolatry, resentment, revenge, and retaliation. These are the challenges that we face in our karma, in our psychology, in our personality. And when we come to understand that we are on the path of becoming an ascended master, and what we want to do is manifest the Christ consciousness, these are all the errors that we have to perfect. And we're going to talk now about how to apply this understanding. When you get to this point, you've hopefully gone through the intro series, you've seen the causal body and the 7 rays, and you've come to understand that we have 7 flames minimum, at least 7 different flames that we work with. So we do invocation to the violet flame, the blue flame, the pink flame, the yellow flame. Each flame has its own qualities and properties and produces specific results. And so we're going to talk about applying that now to the science of the cosmic clock. At the age of 12, on your 12th birthday, karma descends. So you get a pass for the first 12 years of your life. You don't have to deal with your karma. The karma is situated in your electronic belt. So again, we go back to, you're standing here in the center, you're looking at 12 o'clock line. If you look directly in front of you in your electronic belt, you will be dealing with the karma of God power, and it will be actually the perversions of God power, all stored in the electronic belt. And in this location in your electronic belt will be the perversions of God love and of God mastery, God control, etc. So this is a diagram of your electronic belt, and it's also a diagram of the timing of when that karma comes up to be dealt with. So on your 12th birthday, and we'll use mine for an example, I was born March 10, 1958 at 2:15 p.m. Eastern Time. So on my 12th birthday, March 10, 1970, 2:15 p.m., my karma began to, as we say, descend. And when we say descend, we mean become physical. It actually rises up out of the electronic belt, and it is available for transmutation. And if it is not transmuted by the violet flame, then it becomes physical as the experience is in our life. And it becomes the testing of our soul and the challenge for how we're going to deal with that energy. Are we going to clean it up, or are we going to further misqualify it and create more karma? So for the entire year, from age 12 to age 13, we are dealing with the karma on the 12 o'clock line, and it is blue ray karma. And there are blue ray decrees that we will use to work with that, along with the violet flame. On my 13th birthday, March 10, 1971, 2:15 p.m., I shift onto the 1 o'clock line. And for the next 12 months, I'm working on the perversions of God love that come out of the electronic belt for transmutation. It's initiations of the pink ray. Pink ray decrees, along with violet flame, will be very helpful to do this. And I will be on this line of the clock until my 14th birthday, March 10, 1972, 2:15 p.m. I moved to the 2 o'clock line. Every year on my birthday, at the time of my birth, I move to the next line on the clock, and I deal with the karma stored in the electron belt in that position. While this is going on, there is a monthly sub-cycle. So just like you have hour hand on the clock and minute hand on the clock, we need to chart 2 cycles at the same time. So during my 12th year, when I'm doing all of this work on the 12 o'clock line, I'm also going through a monthly subcycle that changes every month at the 10th, because I was born on the 10th at 2:15 p.m. So in my subcycle, I'm going to shift on April 10, May 10, June 10, July 10, all the way around. So I'm going to go once around the whole clock in the year while my major cycle is on the 12 o'clock line. When I shift to the 1 o'clock line, I'm going to spend a whole year on the 1 o'clock line, and I'm going to go through a monthly subcycle of all 12 lines of the clock. And this repeats throughout the rest of your life. So by the time you hit your 24th birthday, you're back on the 12 o'clock line, and you're doing a major 12 o'clock cycle and a minor 12 o'clock cycle. And a month later, you're doing a major 12 o'clock cycle and a minor 1 o'clock cycle. And the monthly subcycle repeats the same way. I find for most people, coming to grips with understanding that is rather challenging. I don't know why the math is difficult. You have to just keep reminding yourself that it doesn't matter that this is Capricorn and this is Aquarius and this is Pisces. Forget that. You were born Sagittarius, doesn't matter. Your birthday is always placed at the 12 o'clock line, and you calculate from there. And you shift one position on the clock every year on your birthday at the hour and the minute that you were born. And your monthly subcycle shifts every month on the date of your birth. If you're born on the 15th of the month, every month on the 15th, at the hour and the minute you were born, you shift on your monthly subcycle. That is how you calculate where you are on the cosmic clock. And that is how you can see what kind of karma you're dealing with on the cosmic clock. And so going back to looking at the perversions of the clock, this helps you really identify the energy. So when you turn 15, you're on the 3 o'clock line. And you're dealing with conceit, deceit, arrogance, and ego. And you're coming into the teenage years, and you're dealing with these challenges in the next 3 years. On your 18th birthday, you're at indecision, self-pity, and self-justification. And you're moving into these initiations. So knowing what kind of energy is coming up out of your electronic belt, it becomes a little bit easier to apply scientifically the tools of the various flames, the various decrees and invocations that we have to deal with the karma that's at hand. Now, what makes it really powerful is understand this. Karma that comes up at the 12 o'clock line, if it's not dealt with, and you go through the whole 12-year cycle and you didn't deal with this, you can't access that karma again for 12 years. It becomes a greater burden, especially if you continue to misqualify that energy. Because on your 13th birthday, a different doorway opens in your electronic belt. A different karma comes up to work with. And whatever you didn't deal with here, you missed the boat, you got to wait 12 years to get back there again. So understanding the cycles of the cosmic clock is profoundly powerful, because some people, not having this science, will just decree in general and not be specific. And we talk about, the masters teach, the more specific you are in the calls that you make and the decrees that you give, the more specifically you describe with the words what it is you are invoking, the more effective and powerful your decrees will be. So if you know that you want to decree to bind and transmute all criticism, condemnation, judgment, and black magic in your 12 o'clock line, and you're doing it at the time when that kind of energy is coming up for transmutation, you're going to clean that up in a hurry and not have to deal with it again. And if you fail to do that, that opportunity doesn't come around for 12 more years. So it's a very powerful science, and it takes a little bit of work, because most people won't be able to do this in their head. You're gonna have to sit down and draw charts and make diagrams and make notes And if you're like me, you do a spreadsheet and you record your work so you can keep track of it so that you can know where you are, because this also relates to the planetary cycles in your personal and planetary astrology. And very few people know how to chart that. And 1 in a million could do it in their head. You have to be serious, be a good student, get a pen and paper, and start to take notes. And that's why the book exists that we showed you, Charting Your Cycles on the Cosmic Clock. Predict Your Future, Understand the Cycle of the Cosmic Clock. About 400 and something pages. It's a textbook. It requires study. Along with the book, we have at least 50 or 60 hours of lectures available that go into this in depth. We've barely scratched the surface. We've probably gone too deep already for what we wanted to do today. But there's your intro to the cosmic clock.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Michael. And in relation to the electronic belt and the causal body, essentially what we're doing by understanding and applying the cosmic clock teachings to the electronic belt is we're going through a new doorway with each of the different grids that we're stepping into within the cosmic.
We carry the karma of all of our past lives in our electronic belt. And based on the cycles of the cosmic clock, karma comes up out of the electronic belt for us to deal with. So we're just gaining access to the understanding of the timing of that, what comes up, when it comes up. And knowing that, we can very effectively apply the tools of the science of spoken word and invoke the flames of God to transmute and clean up that karma. And when we do that, that energy is then raised into our causal body and stored as a perfected energy, and it becomes a resource that we can draw upon in the future. So it's just cleaning up our karma much more powerfully, much more effectively, and much more rapidly. So we talk about the violet flame being a powerful tool, and this just amplifies 1,000-fold what the violet flame can do by knowing when and how to apply it.
Absolutely. And we only have to transmute 51% of our karma in order to ascend in this lifetime.
Which is a huge blessing, because 51%, you don't know how big that is. I often use the illustration of the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. For most people, it would be an appropriate illustration to say that your karma is that big. And so if somebody gave you a pick and shovel and said, I need you to take down that pyramid block by block, and I'll give you 1,000 lifetimes to do it, you probably still wouldn't get it done. Most people who are good people, and those who have some kind of a spiritual focus in their life, and they pray or they meditate, or they spend time communing with self, with God, and they live a good life and they do good works, they're working with a pick and shovel. And when you bring in the violet flame, it's like bringing in a team of bulldozers. And you can actually get the job done in one lifetime. And then bringing in the cosmic clock, you just get the job done faster.
Amazing. I wonder if I can sell it to my grandpa that way, because he's always watching Earth Movers on. Grandpa, can you move that much of your karma with all of these tools that are like bulldozers and Earth Movers? We just. But
that's how fun. That's how big the project is. People don't know how much karma they have. People don't understand that we came into embodiment on the physical plane such a long time ago, millions and millions of years ago. And the divine plan that we had at the time was we were going to live 14 lifetimes, 7 as male, 7 as female, 1 on each of the 7 rays. 14 lifetimes, 1,000-year lifespan for each one. So in 14,000 years, we would ascend back to God. Well, 14,000 years, we never did. Here we are 5 million years later, and we're just lost with all the karma that we've created in the meantime. And it's that big. It's like the Great Pyramid. It's massive. The blessing is we now have access to the teachings of the Son of Masters, the dispensation that Saint Germain got from the Lords of Karma only not even 100 years ago to bring the violet flame back out, which had been forbidden for 10,000 years because it was misused and abused. And now, because of the further dispensation that we can ascend at 51% instead of 100%, we can do it in one lifetime. We haven't had that in 5 million years. It's extraordinary.
Fantastic. Well, I am grateful that we are the players on the field, as are you who are watching this message now. So we would love to hear from you what this message means to you, what it means for you, what you're going to do with it, and any questions that come up as you begin your own practice, and hopefully join in with us as well on Saturday nights with the Shambhala Temple of Light. There is a beginner's course that you are able to take advantage of at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. You can go to shambhalatempleoflight.com and gain access to the PDF to follow along with the broadcast at 7 p.m. on Saturdays. And there are a load of other resources there. And Michael Seegers, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure being with you tonight. Thank you for sharing your insights. For the final message for the 10th episode of the Michael and Laura Show, what would that be?
Be diligent, be a good student, be willing to engage with the material. Don't take it lightly. Your life is worth more.
What would you define life as when you say that?
What would I define life as?
Yeah.
Life is the flame of God expressing through us.
That is a powerful note to end on. So, to the God in you that is expressing through you, may you continue to shine brightly, and will you come to the next show that Michael and I do to help you become more familiar with the teachers who came before us all and who left some nuggets for us to be able to call on. Then please do join the Michael and Laura Show for episode 11 coming soon.